Hey, Madeline. We're going to pick back up in chapter 17 right now and finish out the irregular forms for the Piel. So just a reminder about this new kind of section on verbs. So we're looking at all the different conjugations, or in Hebrew we use the word stems. You might also see the word binyan, which is the Hebrew word for it. So stems. So we've looked at the kal stem, that's the basic one. Kal comes from kalal, which means light. And we looked at the Piel stem, which as we saw, it often intensifies the kal meaning. So do you remember what the markers are for the Piel? What are the clues? Remember, we're not trying to understand every little detail, but we're trying to look for the kind of the basic clues, and we're kind of acting as detectives, paying attention to little pieces that will help give us the right answer. So the Piel in the perfect, remember the clue is the doubling in the middle root. So right here in katal, it would be right here. There would be doubling right here. And also another clue is there's often a hirek in the first one, in the first root. For the imperfect, remember the clue is shava, patach, doubling. And we talked about how it's kind of a step ladder up. So let's add these vowels in, and we'll illustrate what this looks like. So for the perfect here, katal, that would be the kal. But in Piel, it would be kittel. So hirek, doubling, and then yes, and then a tzere. Okay, so you see that? So kittel. Okay, so we see the hirek and the doubling, and that's how we know it's a Piel. Now for the imperfect, and also for the the participle. Sorry, for the participle, which remember it starts with a mem. That's the other clue for the participle. So instead of a yod, you'd have a mem, but the clue is shava, patach, doubling. So shava, ye, ka, doubling, tzere. So ye, ka, tail. And the clue is shava, patach, doubling. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. In most cases, you'll be able to rely on this, but as we know, there are some exceptions, especially with gutturals. And the only real exception you'll need to worry about with the Piel is when the middle root letter is a guttural, which would be mostly an aleph, a resh, and sometimes an ayin. So if you'll flip to page 164, you'll see Piel, irregular forms. So under A, the only major problem with irregular verbs in the Piel is the category of the second guttural, since we know that gutturals can't take doubling, so that's why it's an issue. So there are two options. If you see A1, some verbs show compensative lengthening. That's something to file back, because that might come in handy when you start working on the intermediate book. So compensative or compensatory lengthening. So that means that the vowel before the guttural is lengthened, and I'll explain why and how this works. Let's take a look at the word ma'an. You'll see mem, aleph, nun. Aleph cannot take the doubling that we would expect from the Piel. So instead, if we tried to put the doubling here, what happens is it kicks it back. And that's the compensative piece. So it kicks it back and it lengthens this first vowel. And if you remember from when we talked about vowels at the very, very beginning, we talked about short and long vowels. Basically, if a guttural kicks back, doubling, it lengthens a short vowel. So if we had a hirek here and tried to put doubling here, it basically kicks back this dot here and makes it a tzere, because it's an I-class vowel. So then we would come up with me'ain. Okay? So let's see that the vowels here are the same, but the dagesh got kicked back, and lengthened that first vowel. Okay? So you gotta know that, because then you can recognize you're looking for a doubling, but there's no doubling, but you know that the rule of compensatory lengthening, or compensative lengthening, kicks back the doubling because this is a guttural. So remember, we're kind of using detective skill. Okay, so that's for the perfect. For the imperfect, same issue. This is, again, ma'an in the imperfect. You can see our basic system up here, shiva patach doubling. Okay, so same thing. If we start putting the things together, shiva patach doubling, uh-oh, it can't take it. Can't take it. So what does it do? Kicks it back, and it lengthens the patach to a kametz, from a short A to a long A. And then this vowel stays the same. Okay? So if you think, oh, this might be a Piel, but I'm not sure, look for a guttural. And usually just pay attention if there's a guttural at all, and often things will kind of start falling into place. So, compensative lengthening, that's one of the options, especially in the cases of aleph, resh, and sometimes ayin in the second position. The other option is that some verbs, if you look at A2, some verbs show what's called virtual doubling. And this is kind of, this is a little bit trickier. In this case, there is no doubling, but it's implied. And so take a look at example 9a, bi'er. If you compare it to the next one right next to it, kitel, you'll see that the only difference is that the ayin doesn't have a dagesh in it. Otherwise, they look the exact same. They both start with the hirik, with the e, and they go from e to a, which if you think Piel, you should be able to figure that out. But but basically the dagesh there just kind of disappears. It's implied rather than marked. So that would be in the cases of hey, chet, and sometimes ayin. So same with example 9b, yevaer. You see shiva patach, but no doubling, but it's implied. So compare it to the one right next to it, yekatel, shiva patach doubling, and then look back at yevaer. Same vowels, same everything except for that dagesh in the third letter. So just be aware of that kind of stuff. You can read through B. There's some other irregular patterns with the PL, but it's not really something to be concerned about. Basically, they follow general rules of stuff, okay? So let me just read through the vocab for Chapter 17 for you and talk through some of that stuff. So, vocab Chapter 17, we're looking at page 165. First, we'll look at nouns. Chodesh is new moon or month. Mate is a rod, staff, or also tribe. So it kind of has two meanings. One is a more concrete meaning and one is a more metaphorical meaning. Mispar is number, and that comes from the root safar, which is where we also is related to the word for sefer. Okay? So you can see, if you look, mispar. It's related, but it's a little different. So that means number. Next one, mitzvah, commandment. That comes from the root tzava, which we'll look at in a little bit. And there it's related to mitzvot, which is the plural of mitzvah, commandment. Flip over. There's one more noun right there. Sofer, scribe. Okay, I think you know that one. But that is a participle, as you can see. It's the participial form of sefer, actually. So it's writer. And then we kind of, so the writing one, writer, and then we scribe. Okay. Okay, flip back over and we'll look at the verbs. Ba'ar, to burn, that's in the call. In the PL, it means, that would be bi'er, and it means to burn or to consume. It's a little bit more intense. Barak is only in the Piel. That's the D right there. That means Piel. It means to bless. You hear that? The noun form is beraka, but in Piel it would show up as berak. Okay? And quick note, we can look at our rules real quick and figure out what's happening. So the resh sometimes acts like a guttural, so it can't take doubling, so it kicks it back. Kicks back the doubling into the first vowel, and it changes from a hirek to a tsere. And so it goes from birak to berak, but it's Piel. Next one is bakash, and that also occurs only in the Piel. So that would be bikesh, and it means to seek. Next one is davar, that's the root, but in the Piel it would be diber. And we see our regular Piel clues right away. Hirek and doubling, and that means to speak. It's related to amar, to say, but this one is diber, to speak. So go ahead and flip over. We'll finish the verbs on the right side. Halal, in the Piel, or it's hilel, and that is to praise. And I think we looked last time at hallelujah, praise the Lord. That's what that comes from. And a word that looks similar but is very different in its meaning is the next one, halal. So there's halal, praise, and then there's halal, which is to defile or pollute. Very, very different. And in the Piel, it would show up as chilel. Next one is safar. In the Kal, it means to count or number. In the Piel, it means to recount or relate. So again, it kind of intensifies the meaning. It nuances a little bit more. To recount or relate. Ma'an. In the Piel, it would be to refuse. And note that there's an aleph in the second root, and so it would kick back the doubling, and it would probably show up as me'ain, which is what we looked at. There you go. Next one is tzava, in the Piel, to command. And note that this is one of the few examples of a vav being a part of the three root. The three root kind of system. And so instead of it being a mater, it's actually a full vowel. So tzava. And it's one that you just need to memorize and recognize. And this means to command. And in the Piel, it will show up as tziva. Okay. And then the last verb is kalal. In the Kal, it means to be light. And its antonym, its opposite, is kavad or kaved, to be heavy. So kalal, to be light, is related to kaved, to be heavy. But in the Piel, it gets a more intense meaning. In the Piel, it means to curse or to treat lightly, or to and so if you look at kavad in the Piel, it's kibed, and that means also more intense, not just be heavy, but it means to honor. Okay, so kalal, to be light in the Kal, and then in the Piel, to curse or treat lightly. And then just look over to the left and we'll look at the other ones. Gam, also, even, indeed. Me'ah, 100, 100. And then asar, 10. And it can also show up as aser. So those are your first numbers right there. Okay. So take a look at the instructions for homework I have for you and work on those. And remember that at the end of each chapter, the exercises are a chance for you to put into practice what you've just learned in the previous lesson. So don't be afraid to flip back, to use the tables like this for reference, and to put it into practice, to figure it out. So great. See you next time.